and my worry quits. Your strength is rising in my weakness. How could I deserve a love like this? You're breathing life into my battles. You speak your purpose and the panic ends. Your glory shining like the morning. How could I deserve a love like this? I'm trusting you, I'm laying down the lies. Open up my eyes, letting you change everything. When I give up, you give me life unknown. Now I'm not my own, letting you change everything. My heart has become your throne. Almighty, nothing comes close. My soul is safe within my Savior. There's no other love that's greater. My heart has become your throne. Almighty, nothing comes close. My soul is safe within my Savior. There's no other love that's greater. Your love is 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 greater.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Centrepoint Kids Online. Stay tuned for today's story, some music, and some great ideas to keep those creative minds active.
Hi everybody.
Hello.
Good to see you all again. Now, maybe you remember that last week Paul was wanting to go to see the emperor. He was Caesar, there were various Caesars, and he was wanting Caesar himself to hear the case that some Jews had made against him. Now we are going to find out what happened. Well, we read in Acts 27 verse 1 that it was decided that we should sail for Italy. Rome was the city from which the emperor ruled, and Paul was going to go there to appear before Caesar. Rome is still the capital of Italy today. This verse also tells us that there were others traveling with him. So, an officer called Julius, who was from the emperor's own guard, was appointed to guard Paul and certain other prisoners. They boarded a ship which was sailing to various places in Asia, and a man called Aristarchus, that was quite a name, wasn't it, from a town called Thessalonica, was going with Paul and his other companions. The ship called in at a place called Sidon, and Julius, the Roman army officer, was very kind to Paul and allowed him to visit some of his friends in Sidon, and they took care of him. They sailed from Sidon, and they first of all went to a place called Myra in Lycia. And there, Julius, the army officer, found a ship that was sailing to Italy. The ship set off, but it was sailing very slowly because there was a strong wind blowing against it. Remember, in these days, there were no engines to drive boats. It was all done by sail, and it must have been very difficult. They sailed along the coast of Crete, a Greek island which we can still visit today. It's a nice holiday island, actually. And they finally reached a place in Crete called Safe Harbors. Sometimes it's translated as fair havens. The ship had already been delayed because of the strong winds that were blowing, and the sailing was very hard. And it was now a difficult time of the year to sail because of the weather. Verse 10 of the chapter tells us that Paul warned everyone that this voyage was likely to end in disaster. He said it could end with the loss of the ship, of all the things that were on it, and that even our own lives might be lost.
You know, that's interesting, because you were telling me that he hadn't received a vision regarding this or anything from God, a
No,
message.
that's right.
He just seemed to know about it.
That's right.
And he was a tent maker, wasn't he? And tent makers had to do things with sails. And
That's
you would
right.
probably hear from sailors that this was a time of the year that really wasn't a good time to sail. And so once the weather had broken, we'd better not sail. And that's basically what he was saying
That's
to him,
right.
wasn't it? Yeah, okay, I'll let you continue. Sorry about that.
I hope he doesn't keep interrupting me, everybody. Now, in spite of Paul's warning, nobody listened to him. The army officer, he decided that he was going to listen to the owner of the ship and the ship's captain. He wasn't going to listen to Paul. And also, they didn't think that the harbour, in spite of its name, was a very good place to spend the winter in with the ship. So they set sail again, and they were going to sail round the island of Crete to a place called Phoenix, because they thought that was a better, a safer harbour in which to spend the winter. And at first, things seemed to be going well. There was a wind blowing, and it seemed to be that it was taking them in the right direction. But then disaster happened. And sometimes that's exactly what happens when we go our own way. Things do go wrong. And they could not sail against the wind. It became so strong. And they were really, really afraid. And in the end, it got so bad that they just had to let the ship go any way it wanted, and it was tossed about in the storm. And this went on for many days. They were actually very frightened. And I think I would have been exactly the same, being in high seas. It was a very, very strong wind called the northeaster. And they passed an island called Cauda, and they then decided to pull in the lifeboat. It looks as if they were probably trailing a small lifeboat behind them. So they pulled it in with great difficulty, and they even had to tie ropes round the ship to hold it together. Remember, the ships in these days were made of wooden planks, so that must have been very, very frightening. I expect people were then wishing they'd listened to Paul and that they hadn't left safe harbours in Crete. Sometimes when we go our own way, that is exactly what happens. Things don't go well. So they had then given up all hope, even of being saved. The ship was tossed about. They didn't feel like eating. I don't think I would have felt much like eating either. And then something amazing happened. Paul stood up, and first of all, he reminded them that he had advised them not to leave the previous harbour. But he had some good news for them. He said the previous night he'd had a dream. An angel of God had appeared to him in a vision and had said to him, "Don't be afraid, Paul. You are going to stand before Caesar. And not only that, I'm going to give you the lives of all those who are sailing in the ship with you. Everyone is going to be safe. Not even one of you is going to lose so much as a hair of their head." And Paul said he belonged to this God and he worshipped this God. And he then said, "Be cheerful." That must have felt quite difficult, I think, in these circumstances. I trust in God. It's good to trust in God. We can trust him with our lives. And then on the 14th night,
14 nights they were in that storm.
14 nights.
Do you know, boys and girls, I remember one night Grace and I were on a sailing boat in Loch Earn, and the storm came up very suddenly again. And thankfully we were moored, but we were out on the lake, on the loch, and we couldn't get back to the shore. So as a result, we had to wait, and it was about half a night, and that was frightening, wasn't it? But this was 14 nights. Wow.
They must have been very, very frightened. And they were thinking then, though, suddenly they realised they might be coming close to land. I think experienced sailors, like the men who were probably on this ship, would have realised that something was different. So they didn't have things called depth charges that we have nowadays that send an electronic signal and measure the depth of the water below the ship. So they had something that was a lot less technical, and I think it might have looked something like this. Robert will show you.
I'll show you this. It's depth sounders that they use now, but in the past they used to have something with a weight in it. I've got a stone here with a rope, and you'll notice there's a knot there. Now that's only half a meter between this one and that one there. But theirs would have been what was called a fathom, which is about 2 meters. So we'll see how far it is to go down to the ground from here. You'll hear it hitting the ground. That's gone 1 knot, and now 2 knots. And this is now coming, oh, that's it, nearly to 3 knots. So that's about a meter and a half, nearly, meter and a half down to the ground. You hear it hitting there? That's it.
So the first time the sailors measured the depth of the water below the ship, they found that it was 20 fathoms, which would be, I reckon, about 36.5 meters. And a little while later, they threw out the rope again and they measured it, and it was 15 fathoms, which was round about 27.5 meters. And they thought, oh, we were right, the water's becoming more shallow, so we must be getting near land. And they were very afraid that they would run aground somewhere, and it was dark. So they threw out 4 anchors. Now this would be, I think this looks a little bit more like a pirate ship, but there's a model of a sailing ship. And if Robert turns it round, you'll be able to see there's a tiny wee anchor on this side here. So it'd be 4 anchors. They threw them out, and the anchors would grip into the ground under the bottom of the sea. Couldn't think of that word for a minute. And it would hold the ship in place. So they were preparing for daylight to come, and they were even praying. They were obviously very, very afraid. But you know, some of the sailors thought that they would leave the ship. So they were trying to launch the lifeboat. Remember, they had taken it in earlier. And they were pretending that they were going to throw out more anchors from the front, which is called the bow of the ship. But Paul realised what was happening, and he told Julius, the army officer, unless these sailors stay on the ship, then none of us can be saved. Do you know, there was an incident like that a number of years ago where a big cruise ship was in trouble, and of all things, the captain decided to desert the ship on a lifeboat. And that's what these sailors were trying to do. They were just thinking of themselves. But this time, the army officer wanted to believe what Paul said. So he got some of his soldiers to cut the ropes and to let the lifeboat fall into the water. And then just before dawn, Paul said to everyone, we are going to be safe. God promised me that. And we all need to eat something. They would need strength for what lay ahead. He said to them, this is the 14th day that we haven't gone without, we've gone without food. Can you imagine that?
14
It's
days,
hard enough going 1 day without food, let alone 14 days. So Paul took some bread and he gave God thanks for it. And then he began to eat. And the others, they felt a bit better. So they then took some food and they ate as well. And then they had lightened the ship, got rid of the cargo, and they had decided that they were going to sail for land. The sailors had noticed a beach then in the distance, and they thought it was light enough, we're going to try to reach that land. So they raised the sail again, and they untied the rudders that steer the ship, and they tried to make it to the shore. But as they did that, the ship hit a sandbank and it began to break up. Remember, we said it has wooden planks, and these would break apart in the wind and the waves. And there were 276 people on board. That was an awful lot of folk to get to land. And some of the soldiers wanted to kill Paul and the other prisoners who were on the ship being taken to Italy. But Julius decided he wanted to protect Paul, so he wouldn't let them kill the prisoners, but he ordered everybody who could swim to jump into the water and to swim for the shore. And if folk couldn't swim, then he told them to grab hold of bits of wood. Some of these would no doubt be parts of the planks that had broken from the ship, and to use them as floats. And they all made it to shore, all 276 people. Remember, God had promised that they would. And
he
God,
keeps his promises,
God
doesn't he?
always keeps his
Yeah.
promises to us, and that is
That's
why
right.
we can trust him with our lives. And you know, Paul really wanted to reach Rome. He'd never been there before, although he had written a letter to them, which is the next book of the New Testament. And Paul wrote various letters then to different churches and people, and there were another 4 writers as well, and that is what we learn about in the rest of the New Testament. So, where had Paul and the others landed? Which country was it? Well, we hope to find out next week. That'll be exciting, won't it? And Hazel will be here, God willing, and hopefully she'll be able to enlighten us. We'll look forward to that. Now, that was a long story today, but
And
now
now it's
we've
a
got
quiz.
the quiz.
Right. And so as I don't cheat, I'll keep on looking
I'm
at
going
you
to
in the hope.
make sure that he keeps
Okay.
looking.
I'll keep my eyes looking at you. Okay, on you go, Grace. I'll try my best.
What was the name of the army officer who guarded Paul?
Oh, the army officer. Now, shout it out at the screen and maybe I'll be able to remember. Oh, no, wait a minute. Julius. Julius was the name. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Good.
right. Where did the ship first call in? What was the first port of call?
Oh, that was where he was allowed to see some friends. Sidon.
Sidon. That's
Sidon.
right. Where was the name of the Greek island they came to?
Oh, that's a lovely island. Crete.
Crete. That's the right one.
Yeah.
What was the first place they reached in Crete? Do you remember the name of the harbour?
No, I know it from the other name, which is Fair Havens. Oh, Safe Harbor, was that
Safe
it?
Harbor.
Safe Harbor.
That sounds like a very safe place to be, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
it? What did Paul say would happen if the ship left safe harbours?
Oh, it's a pity they didn't stay there, isn't it? Aye, Paul had said that there would be danger to the ship, to all the goods in it, and even their very lives, they might have died.
Now, hopefully this is an easy one for everybody. Did anyone listen to Paul's warning?
No,
No,
they
no.
didn't, did they?
not a soul. What did the sailors do when they thought that the ship was nearing land after that long time? Do you remember this one?
Oh,
I hope Robert remembers because he was trying to help us with it.
there was a lot of things that they did when they neared land, but one of the things was they threw out the anchor. But is that what you're thinking?
No, I'm not
No?
thinking that at all. What I was thinking was they measured the depths of the
Oh,
water.
that's about I was doing, and I didn't even. Oh,
Really?
That's ridiculous, isn't it?
You can tell him if you see him at some point. That was ridiculous. How many people were on the ship?
Oh, no, I'm terrible for these things. 276.
276, and he didn't cheat, honest.
I guess.
And the
I was looking
last
at Grace, did you
question.
see that?
After the ship became stuck on a sandbank and started to break up, how did everyone from the ship get safely to land?
Oh, well, those who could swim would probably swim. And then anybody who couldn't swim, they were told to, it was bits of the wood that had probably broken off from the ship,
That's right.
and that would be used as a float.
That's right.
Yeah.
And they used that as floats, and they all got safely to land as God had promised them. Well, we hope you have a good week, everybody. Remember to check out the activities that we put online for you.
And here's one of them that we put is how you can make a wee ship. Do you see that wee boat that I've made? Now, the only problem with it, it's a paper boat. So it's maybe okay for just using on your tabletop to pretend it's going along the sea. See if you
I
try
don't
it in
think
the
it'll
water.
float very well.
Only floats for
I don't
about
think
5
it'll
minutes.
float
and
very
then
well
it
at all.
sinks.
So you could try have a go at that and some of the other things we put online. And remember, if you're able, join our kids Zoom call at 9:45 right after this. And have a great week. And now we're going to end with a song from every nation. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Your love is lighting up the darkness. Fear is scattered and my worry quits. Your strength is rising in my weakness. How could I deserve a love like this? You're breathing life into my battles. You speak your purpose and the panic ends. Your glory shining like the morning. How could I deserve a love like this? I'm trusting you, I'm laying down the light. Your love is lighting up the darkness. Fear is scattered and my worry quits. Your strength is rising in my weakness. How could I deserve a love like this? You're breathing life into my battles. You speak your purpose and the panic ends. Your glory shining like the morning. How could I deserve a love like this? How could I deserve a love like this? I'm trusting you, I'm laying down the lies. Open up my eyes, letting you change everything. When I give up, you give me life unknown. Now I'm on my own, letting you change everything. My heart has become your throne. Almighty, nothing comes close. My soul is safe within my Savior. There's no other love that's greater. My heart has become your throne. Almighty, nothing comes close. My soul is safe within my Savior. There's no other love that's greater. Your love is greater. Your love is greater. Your love is greater. Your love is greater.
I don't deserve this, I am not worth it. What is the verdict? Grace. Loved and forgiven, saved by the risen King, so I give you praise. I will stand tall as I answer your call. This life I will live by faith. Because you deserve it, yes, you are worth it. I'm at your service, amen. Light in the darkness, love through the heartless. No one can stop this, go. Yes, you are greater, with you I am brave, but no one can top this, whoa. Your kingdom is coming, your glory is showing, and so I will give my all. Yes, I will go, ready to show, let the whole world know.
My heart has become your throne.
King of kings, Lord of lords,
Almighty, nothing comes close.
nothing
My
compares.
soul is safe within my Savior.
Safe in your arms.
There's no other love that's great.